ghosts, mind readers, axe murderers, the specter of cabin fever, shapeshifters, poltergeists. The Shining offers all of these monstrosities and even more. But what is the darkest detail in The Shining? There's a furry. There's a furry, like a third of the way through the novel, 2/3 of the way through the novel, giving a blow. There's a furry giving a blow. It's not that. It's not that bit. That's not the darkest detail, though. Maybe it should be. I mean, I don't understand how. I don't want to. I don't want to understand. But it's not that. This video is not about that. Nietzsche. And look, if you're going to make a pretentious and poorly edited video essay about something like a horror novel where the most serious scene is the big bad guy mashing in his own face with a mallet, Bugs Bunny style, you have to quote Nietzsche because it's the scholarly thing to do. Right? Nietzsche said, "What was silent in the Father speaks in the Son, and often I found in the Son the unveiled secret of the Father." Keep that in mind while we go through a brief recap of the novel. Jack needs a job. Jack is an alcoholic. Jack is also a father and a husband. But Jack is basically those three things in that order: alcoholic, father, husband. So he finds a job working basically as a handyman at a hotel/ski resort while the place is closed for winter. During the winter, however, it will be total isolation. Jack and his son Danny and his wife Wendy move in on the final day of the season. Oh yeah, and the whole place is haunted. So now they're locked in with a bunch of ghosts and hauntings and spirits and apparitions and, I guess, a furry or two. What a gas. Also, Danny has a special ability referred to as the Shine. It is a kind of telepathy which used to be referred to as being a seer. But what is a seer? Now, being a seer was much more prevalent in the days before the internet, and especially in the days before video, because you could just lie about what you said, what you had seen, and no one could prove otherwise. But just what is a seer? Well, in this space, it's actually a little bit more of an interesting answer than you might think. There is a difference between being a prophet, being a seer, and being a revelateur. And I think there is a good bit from John A. Widstow, who was an apostle for the Church of Latter-day Saints. In his 1943 book, Evidences and Reconciliations, Aids to Faith in a Modern Day, Widstow wrote, quote, "A prophet is a teacher of known truth. A seer is a perceiver of hidden truth. A revelator is a bearer of new truth." Danny, being closely akin to a seer, is targeted by the hidden hostilities of the Overlook Hotel. But the hotel uses his father as a conduit to try to get to the boy. But the powers of the hotel, they're too much for Jack. And these dream-like visions, these nightmares, end up leaving Jack irritable, excitable, and otherwise confused by what is going on. In the end, Jack has hunted Danny and Wendy through the entire hotel, and eventually Jack briefly gains control over himself, urging his son to get away. But the Overlook is too much for Jack to overcome. Danny and Wendy get out of the building, and Jack / the Overlook Hotel remember that they have to relieve the pressure valve on the boiler or else, kaboom. And, well, kaboom. No more Jack, no more Overlook. But real quick, I want to take a step back. The longer Jack stays in the Overlook Hotel, the more dreamlike, nightmarish visions he has. They leave him confused, irritable, excitable. They are often accusatory. And almost always, they threaten Jack into being a threat to his son. Now remember, Jack is an alcoholic, and there is something called alcoholic hallucinosis. The following is stolen directly from Wikipedia. Sourced from Wikipedia. Alcoholic hallucinosis is a complication of alcohol misuse in people with alcohol use disorder. It can occur during acute intoxication or withdrawal with the potential of having delirium tremens. Alcohol hallucinosis is a rather uncommon alcohol-induced psychotic disorder almost exclusively seen in chronic alcoholics who have many consecutive years of severe and heavy drinking during their lifetime. Alcoholic hallucinosis develops about 12 to 24 hours after the heavy drinking stops suddenly and can last for days. It involves auditory and visual hallucinations, most commonly accusatory or threatening voices. The risk of developing alcoholic hallucinosis is increased by long-term heavy alcohol abuse and the use of other drugs. Descriptions of the condition date back to at least 1907. Now, the best way that I've ever heard this explained is that your brain needs dreams. Your brain needs that deep sleep which allows dreams. Alcohol, and especially the sugars involved in alcohol, make it so that while you're asleep, your brain does not reach that deep level of sleep. Your brain does not get that dream state. Your brain needs that dream state. So, when you don't give it to it with deep sleep, your brain will take it. And sometimes that means you hallucinate when you're awake. So what if all of the ghosts and all of the paranormal activity in The Shining is just a metaphor for the alcoholic hallucinosis suffered by severe alcoholics? Severe alcoholics like Jack. So, to channel Monty Python, and now for something completely depressing: the heritability of alcoholism. This from verywellmind.com. Family, twin, and adoption studies have shown that alcoholism definitely has a genetic component. In 1990, Bloom et al. Proposed an association between the A1 allele of the DRD2 gene and alcoholism. The DRD2 gene was the first candidate gene that showed promise of an association with alcoholism. A study in Sweden followed alcohol use in twins who were adopted as children and reared apart. The incidence of alcoholism was slightly higher among people who were exposed to alcoholism only through their adoptive families. However, it was dramatically higher among the twins whose biological fathers were alcoholics, regardless of the presence of alcoholism in their adoptive families. Subsequent genetic studies have attempted to pinpoint the exact genes associated with alcoholism, but none have produced conclusive results. A number of genes have been identified that play a factor in the risky behaviors associated with alcohol abuse or dependence as well. Some are directly related, and others have only an indirect influence. Now, I'm not really much for biographical criticism, but it should be noted, if for no other reason than to give credence to the ideas that I'm throwing around here, Stephen King has long admitted to alcoholic and addictive behaviors. He also wrote The Shining around 1974, 1975. His son, Joe, was born in 1972. So these ideas of being an alcoholic and being a father would have been troubling Stephen King at the time of writing The Shining. So what we have here is a novel by a man who is self-admittedly an alcoholic and a man who has just had a son. The novel in question is about a man who is an alcoholic and has a young son. These people, this family, go to a hotel in which we find lots of ghosts and specters. These ghosts and specters end up being a metaphor for alcoholism. But something doesn't quite add up there. Alcoholism, the ghosts, wreck the father figure, but they are stronger in Danny. Danny is able to channel these spirits like Jack has never been able to. Nietzsche said, "What was silent in the Father speaks in the Son, and often I found in the Son the unveiled secret of the Father." The alcoholism, the Overlook Hotel, the ghosts, the spirits which have ravaged Jack are alive and well inside Danny. And even though he escapes the house that collapses around his father, those things are always with him.